Please be seated. Sometimes things don't go as you plan them. This morning we have really some very wonderful readings to give us a lot of encouragement in time of trouble and in time of difficulty. What we are going to talk about today is trust God. To place our trust in God. To have faith in God. David, who was this beautiful story from the book of Samuel, talks about this thing with Saul and Israelites and Philistines, and how little David, the shepherd, soon or later to become king of Israel, but now still under the kingship of Saul, who was not doing a good job. And Saul was not really trusting that God would help Israel out of this mess, because the Philistines were there and he didn't know what to do. So he finds little David, and David is the shepherd, and David said, well, I can do something about that, because I used to kill the tigers if they were coming after the sheep. Well, everybody kind of rolls their eyes and says, yeah, right. So then Saul puts his big armor on little David, and David tips over. He's not that big. So he, walks out of the armor and, got a little shepherd bag on his, puts stones in the shepherd bag and says, you know what, I can do this because God is our God. So in his youth, he is faithful. He trusts God. And it is that trust of God that puts the stone in that sling and slings it out, and it hits big old Goliath. He looks like Godzilla. Boom. Everybody's like, what happened there? The truth, David put his trust in God. Saul didn't. The Philistines wouldn't have thought that that little kid with a slingshot is going to knock down Goliath Godzilla. And yet, it happened. The gospel is this wonderful reading, I think, that helps us look at some stuff. So we have Jesus, and Jesus is tired. He is bone tired. He's been out doing Jesus things. And people have been in the crowds, and they've been pressing on him, and they've been pushing him around, and they've been asking him all sorts of questions, and they want him to do something else and something else, and he's just tired. And his friends, the fishermen, say, we know what is going to be the best for you, because we'll put you on the boat. Here's this beautiful phrase in the gospel. They took Jesus just as he was. They got him into the boat. They laid him down and gave him a cushion for his head, and he fell asleep. And of course, this is guys out on the boat. You know how that goes. And it could be guys, just guys, or it could be guys and gals, or it could be gals. They're out on the water. They're in a boat. They're away from it all. Whether they're catching fish or talking or yapping, which is probably the case. They're not worried about much of anything, and they're not paying attention to anything. They're in the boat. Any of you who have sailed or been on a motorboat or been on somebody else's boat know that sometimes when you get out on the boat, the world kind of goes away. It's almost hypnotic. The waves rocking. It's beautiful. Well, they're not paying attention. And a squall line blows through. If you've ever been in a sailboat in a squall line, this is not a happy moment. Darcy and I used to sail on Galveston Bay. Of course, we learned early on you always keep the emergency radio on, tuned to the weather channel. And they send out this beep, beep alert and tell you what's going to happen on the bay or the water. The disciples, of course, didn't have benefit of this, plus they weren't paying attention. So the squall line blew up almost, it seems, out of nowhere, and it scared them. Because here they are, totally distracted, they're having a good time, they're not thinking about fighting for their lives, and all of a sudden this wind blows through, and the boat's rocking, and the wind is blowing around them, and they are scared. They are scared. And of course, what do? They go over and wake Jesus up, who is still sound asleep. Do you remember how good it used to feel to sleep that deeply? You could sleep through anything, right? That's where Jesus is. He is so tired, it's like... So they go over, Jesus, don't you see we're about to drown? Now, I don't know about you, but when I'm awoken from a deep sleep, I am cranky. As I suspect Jesus was. And he stands up and rebukes the wind, and it stops, and the waves stop, and I'm suspecting that all the disciples also stopped breathing. I think they probably let in a very collective and then thought to themselves, oh, we've done it now. He says to them, where is your faith? Or, where is your trust? Or, some translations say, have you not enough trust yet? I like that. So we have to be very cautious about how we proceed, I think, with this gospel. Most of us, if we want to beat ourselves up, can say, yeah, well, it's because they were not good and they didn't have enough faith, and that's why the squall line blew through, and blah, blah, blah. Don't go there. That isn't the point. The point is, do we trust God? That's what Jesus is saying to his friends. Do you trust enough? Do you trust God? That trust is built on a relationship. I trust that my car will start. I do not really have a relationship with my interstate battery. I think that's the name of it. Or good, no, that's a tire. I don't have a relationship with the battery. You know what I'm saying? It's an inanimate object. Do I trust that it's going to start? Yes. That's not the trust we're talking about here. We're talking about a trust that is based in a relationship. We trust people. We get to know people. We learn how they're going to react and be with us in certain moments. When we say we trust in God, it is based on our relationship with God. It is not a quantity. Oh, look, Peter has 4 gallons of faith and Judas is in the negative range. It is about relationship in God. With God. With God. Trust God. Sometimes we think that because we are Christians, we can check out all the bad things that are going to happen to us in life. Oh, I'm a Christian. I don't have to worry about that. Jesus is going to take care of me. There are preachers that preach that way. Paul, just in case you wanted to know what really was on the agenda, gives us this lovely list. Oh, and by the way, servants of God, we are going to have afflictions, hardships, calamities, beatings, imprisonment, riot, labor, sleepless nights, hunger, and we are going to conquer these things by kindness and holiness and genuine love. There's nothing in our Christian faith that says we are going to escape the squall lines that happen to all of us in life. What it does say is God is with us. That when the squall lines blow through and we are wide-eyed in terror, God is with us. We trust God. We've had a difficult week this week. We have a lot of difficult weeks ahead, I think. We have 9 people who are at Bible study, gunned down. What a squall line that was to blow into that church. What are they doing today in their broken hearts? The press also picked up how the families have begun healing, as it says in Corinthians, by forgiveness and kindness. Think of the depth of their grief, and think of how much deeper they have to reach to find a place of forgiveness. And they have done this as they trust God. I want to close with this true story in my own life. A year ago, on May 3rd, I got a call. And I got a call from the nurse who was taking care of my mom in the retirement community that she lived in. I don't know if any of you, I know all of you have had parents, obviously. It's Father's Day, happy Father's Day. But, you know, after a certain age, you kind of expect the call, where you wonder if that's the call that somebody's going to tell you, by the way, you know, your mom didn't wake up this morning, or your dad's had a heart attack, or something. Well, my mom was 95, so to be honest with you, I've been expecting a call for about 10 years. I think we all do that. We all kind of anticipate kind of a call. Well, I'd had other calls like that, but none of them, my mom always came home from the hospital. So I was driving to Sequim because I'd been asked to bless the boats on opening day last year. And as I'm driving, I can feel this squall line blowing up in me, because out of nowhere I've got this call, and I have to go bless the boats, and then I'm preaching the next day at St. Paul's in Port Townsend, and should I be driving to the airport instead of going to Sequim, and what if this is the call? And you know how this kind of just begins to accumulate into a huge storm. And I felt my boat rocked by this squall of fear. And in my prayer, I thought, you know, you're going to preach tomorrow that God's love endures all things, even death. And if this is the phone call, if this is your mom's last couple of hours alive, how are you going to do this? Do I trust God? God, who is the source of all love and all life, who is eternal, whose love, I believe, is so powerful it overcomes death. That is the resurrection. Do I trust God to take care of my mom? I have to tell you that I had a great feeling of peace come to me in my heart when I realized I'm not talking about something abstract. I'm talking about a relationship based in love with my mom and with God. Here is the simple Franciscan logic. God is love. Love is forever. I love my mom. That love is eternal because it's also God's love. So, if my mom is going to go to God, that means she's in love. God's love. And I'm in God's love. And we're all together in this. Maybe I can't see my mom anymore, but I have to trust my relationship with God. When Jesus rebuked the wind, if you want to read this gospel literally, you certainly may. I believe, though, what Jesus really rebuked, I believe the miracle of this gospel is that Jesus rebuked fear. He rebuked the fear that was in the disciples' hearts by being able to say to them, I am here with you.